Hi, welcome to The Baker. Get it? My last name's Baker. So I'm sure at some point you've probably seen someone bake a cake, or at very least you've eaten cake. But there's a lot of chemical reactions that go into baking a cake. That includes when you're mixing ingredients and when it's actually in the baking process in the oven. So that's what I'll be discussing throughout this video. Okay, so the first step of making this cake is to beat the butter and sugar in the mixing bowl. Okay, so butter is the fat source, and it's usually used to improve texture, moistness, and overall flavor. The oil keeps the heat from drying out the cake. So sugar bonds best with water molecules, and it helps keep the cake moist and soft. Too much or too little sugar can cause the cake to be too tender or too tough, respectively. All right, so now we'll be beating the butter and sugar together for about 5 minutes until it's light and fluffy. All right, so now we'll be adding the eggs to our mixture. Eggs play a big role since their inherent proteins work with other ingredients to form the structure of the cake. The stabilizing effect of the yolks also help to mix the ingredients that normally wouldn't stay together, like the oil from the butter and water. Those same proteins, when they're heated during baking, help the cake achieve that nice golden hue. We're gonna add these one at a time and then beat in between them. All right, so now we're adding the vanilla, but this is just for the flavor of the cake. Now we're combining the dry ingredients. We'll start with flour. Flour gives the cake its strength, and holds all the ingredients together thanks to its proteins. It mixes with water to form gluten. The gluten stretches to contain the leavening gases when the cake is rising in the oven, and expands a lot under the hot temperature in the oven and gets it that airy texture. Next is baking powder. So baking soda reacts with the acids in the dough to make carbon dioxide, which helps the dough rise. Baking powder is just baking soda with additional acetic salt. It releases carbon dioxide twice during the baking process, so once when it hits the water, and then again once the oven reaches that high temperature. And the heat helps the baking powder produce the tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide that make the cake light and fluffy. Finally, it's just some salt. And that enhances the flavor of the other ingredients and balances out the sweetness of the batter. All right, so we combined the flour, baking powder, salt mixture with the butter and sugar in here, and now we're adding milk. So liquids hydrate the protein, starch, and leavening agents in the cake that allow chemical changes to develop the structure of the cake. So as liquid vaporizes during the baking process, it creates steam, which expands the air cells and the volume of the cake. Liquids also tend to help keep the cake moist and improve its overall texture. Okay, so the heat from the oven is going to help the baking powder produce tiny bubbles of gas, which makes the cake light and fluffy. And the heat is also going to cause the protein from the egg to change and make the cake firm. And in just 20 to 30 minutes, we'll go from this to this to this.